In a small farming town surrounded by dry roads and wide fields, there lived a woman named Mara. She was quiet, hard-working, and kept to herself. Every morning before the sun fully rose, she walked out of her small house and headed toward the field. Her days always began the same way, with the sound of an old tractor starting up slowly, coughing smoke into the cool air. The tractor was very old. Its red paint had faded into brown and orange patches of rust. The seat was cracked, and the engine made loud noises that echoed across the fields. Many people in town said it should have stopped working years ago. But every day, it moved again, slowly but surely, just like Mara. When Mara drove the tractor into town to buy fuel or supplies, people noticed. Some farmers leaned against their new machines and laughed. Shop owners shook their heads. Children whispered and giggled. They wondered why anyone would still use something so worn and noisy when newer tractors were faster and cleaner. "She is stuck in the past," one man said near the market. "That tractor is more rust than metal," another laughed. Mara heard them. She always did. But she never answered. She never raised her voice or showed anger. She only tightened her grip on the steering wheel and kept going. The tractor was not just a machine to her. It was the last thing her father had left behind. Her father had been a quiet farmer too. He trusted the land and believed in patience. When he passed away years ago, people assumed he left Mara nothing of value. No savings. No new equipment. Just an old house, a tired farm, and that rusty tractor. Many thought Mara would fail within a year. But she did not fail. Life on the farm was not easy. The soil was tough, and the weather often worked against her. Some days the sun burned too hot. Other days the rain refused to come. Still, Mara woke up every morning and worked until her arms felt heavy and her back ached. She fixed broken fences, planted crops, and repaired tools with her own hands. The tractor helped her through it all. It never moved fast, but it never stopped either. When the engine made strange sounds, Mara listened closely. When a part felt loose, she tightened it. She treated the tractor like a living thing, with care and respect. People in town watched from a distance. They did not understand her. Some thought she was too proud to accept help. Others thought she was simply foolish. Why struggle with old tools when she could borrow money or ask for support? Why hold on to something that clearly belonged in the past? One afternoon, a group of farmers gathered near the edge of her field. They were discussing new equipment and bigger harvests. As Mara passed by on her tractor, one of them laughed loudly. "That thing still runs," he said, pointing. "For now," another replied. "One day it will stop, and so will she." Mara heard the words clearly. She felt a tight pain in her chest, but she did not slow down. She kept her eyes on the land ahead of her. She remembered her father's voice from long ago, calm and steady. "Trust what you know," he had said. "Not what people say." As the day went on, Mara worked longer than usual. She wanted to finish plowing before nightfall. The sky slowly turned orange, and the wind grew cooler. The tractor moved back and forth across the field, its sound steady and familiar. Suddenly, without warning, the engine went silent. The tractor stopped in the middle of the field. No smoke. No noise. Just stillness. Mara froze for a moment. Her heart beat fast. This had never happened before. She climbed down and walked around the tractor, checking the engine and the wheels. Nothing looked broken. Nothing looked out of place. Then she noticed something strange. Near the seat, a small metal panel looked loose. She was sure it had never been that way before. The screws were different from the others, cleaner and newer. She touched the panel gently. It shifted slightly under her fingers. Mara felt a strange feeling rise inside her. Not fear, but curiosity. She stood there as the sun dipped lower in the sky, staring at the old tractor that everyone laughed at. For the first time, she wondered if there was more to it than she had ever known. She locked the field gate and walked back toward her house, her mind full of questions. That night, She could not sleep. The sound of the tractor stopping played again and again in her thoughts. Outside, the old machine rested quietly in the dark field, holding a secret no one in the town could imagine. And the laughter, for the first time, began to lose its meaning. The next morning, Mara woke up before the sun. Her mind was heavy with thoughts about the tractor. She did not eat much breakfast. She only drank some water and put on her work clothes. The air outside was cool, and the sky was light blue. Birds moved quietly across the fields. Everything looked normal, but Mara felt something had changed. She walked toward the field where the tractor stood still from the night before. It looked the same as always, old and tired, covered with dust and rust. But now, she looked at it with new eyes. The loose metal panel near the seat stayed in her thoughts. Mara brought a small toolbox with her. It was the same box her father used many years ago. Inside were simple tools, nothing special. She placed the box on the ground and slowly climbed onto the tractor. She touched the seat, then the steering wheel, just like she always did. For a moment, she felt calm again. Then she turned her attention to the loose panel. She examined it closely. The metal was cleaner than the rest of the tractor. The screws were not rusty. They looked newer, like they had been changed at some point. Mara felt her heart beat faster. She had repaired this tractor many times, but she had never seen this before. Carefully, she used a tool to loosen the screws. She worked slowly, afraid of breaking something. One by one, the screws came out. The panel came loose in her hands. Behind it was a small dark space, hidden deep inside the tractor. Mara leaned closer and looked inside. At first, she saw nothing but shadow. Then her eyes adjusted. She noticed something wrapped in thick cloth. The cloth was dark and stained with oil. It looked very old. She reached inside and pulled it out. The bundle was heavier than she expected. She placed it on the seat and carefully opened the cloth. Inside were papers. Many papers. Some were yellow with age. Some were folded and tied together with string. There was also a small metal box, cold and solid. Mara sat there in silence. The wind moved gently across the field. The world around her felt far away. She picked up one of the papers and began to read. The words were simple, but the meaning was strong. The paper talked about land ownership. Another paper spoke about agreements and investments. Names appeared again and again. Her father's name was there. Mara felt her throat tighten. She had never seen these documents before. Her father had never spoken about them. She had always believed he lived a simple life, just like she did now. She continued reading, slowly and carefully. The numbers written on the pages were large. Larger than anything she had ever seen. She did not fully understand everything, but one thing was clear. These papers were important. Her hands shook as she opened the metal box. Inside were more documents and a small notebook. The notebook was worn, its cover cracked with age. Mara opened it gently. The writing inside was her father's. He had written about the land, about keeping things safe, about trust. He wrote that some things were better hidden than displayed. He wrote about waiting for the right time and the right person. Mara closed the notebook and took a deep breath. Her thoughts moved quickly. Why would her father hide these things inside a tractor? Why never tell her? Why live so simply when so much was hidden? She looked around the empty field. No one was there. The town was far away. The tractor stood quietly, like it was guarding the truth all these years. Mara carefully wrapped everything back in the cloth and placed it beside her. She knew she could not leave it there. She also knew she could not tell anyone yet. Not the neighbors. Not the people who laughed. She hid the bundle inside her bag and walked back to her house. Every step felt heavy. Her mind was full of questions, but also a strange sense of respect. Her father had trusted her without ever saying a word. At home, she locked the door and placed the bundle on the table. She read through the papers again, this time more slowly. Some words were hard to understand, but she could see dates and values written clearly. Everything pointed to something much bigger than her small farm. As the day passed, Mara did not go back to the field. She stayed inside, reading and thinking. The sound of laughter from town did not reach her ears today. She felt alone, but not weak. By evening, she made a decision. She needed answers. Real answers. She could not solve this on her own. But she also knew she had to be careful about who she trusted. Outside, the sun set behind the fields. The tractor stood where it had stopped, silent and patient. It had carried the secret for many years. Now, the secret had chosen its moment to rise. And Mara knew her life would never return to what it was before. Mara spent the night turning in her bed. The papers she found stayed in her thoughts. Every number, every line of writing felt heavy with meaning. When morning came, she looked tired but determined. She washed her face, made some tea, and sat at the wooden table again. The bundle of documents rested in front of her. She opened the notebook first. Her father's handwriting filled the pages. It was neat and careful, just like his work in the fields. He wrote about the land they owned and how its value was not only on the surface. He mentioned surveys done long ago and agreements made in silence. He wrote that loud success invites trouble, but quiet planning brings safety. Mara read slowly. She stopped often to think. Her father had known something special about the land under their farm. Something rare. He never wrote the full details in one place. Instead, he spread the information across different pages, as if testing the reader's patience. She moved to the other papers. These were official documents. They carried stamps, dates, and signatures. Some spoke about land rights. Others spoke about investments started many years ago. The names matched. The dates made sense. Everything pointed back to her father. Mara felt both pride and confusion. The man she thought she knew had lived with a secret stronger than anyone guessed. He had worked beside her, shared simple meals, and slept in a small house, all while guarding something valuable. By midday, Mara knew she needed help. These papers were real, but she needed someone who could explain them clearly. Someone who would not talk too much. Someone who understood the law. There was a small office in town run by a man named Ben. He was not rich or loud. People said he was fair and careful. Mara trusted quiet people. She wrapped the documents in cloth and placed them inside her bag. Then she walked toward town. As she passed the market, a few people noticed her. Some looked surprised to see her without the tractor. Others ignored her completely. Ben's office was simple. One desk. 2 chairs. Shelves full of books. Ben looked up when Mara entered. He smiled gently and invited her to sit. She placed the bundle on the desk and told him everything. She spoke about the tractor, the hidden panel, and the papers. Ben listened without interruption. His face stayed calm, but his eyes showed focus. He carefully opened the documents and began to read. The room stayed quiet. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Finally, Ben looked up. "These are real," he said. Mara felt her chest tighten. She asked what it meant. Ben explained slowly, using simple words. The land under her farm had special value. It held materials that were rare and useful. Long ago, her father had secured rights and made investments connected to it. Over time, those investments grew. Ben showed her the final numbers. The total value reached nearly 5 million. Mara sat still. The number did not feel real. It felt like something from another life. She thought of her small house, her old tools, her worn clothes. None of it matched what Ben was saying. Ben told her that her father had been wise. He had protected everything quietly. He had hidden the proof in the last place anyone would search. An old tractor. Mara thanked Ben and left the office. The town felt different as she walked through it. The same streets. The same faces. But now, She carried a truth that no one else knew. A few people looked at her and whispered. News always moved fast in small places. But no one knew the full story yet. When she reached her farm, the sun was low. The tractor stood in the field, waiting. Mara walked toward it and placed her hand on its side. The rust felt rough under her fingers. She remembered every laugh, every joke, every look of doubt. The tractor had never answered them. Neither had she. That night, Mara sat on her porch and looked at the stars. She did not feel angry. She did not feel proud. She felt steady. Her father had trusted her for a reason. The truth was now in her hands. And soon, the town would learn that quiet strength can carry the greatest power. The days after Mara learned the truth passed slowly. She did not rush to tell anyone. She continued her routine like always. She woke early, cooked simple food, and walked to her field. The tractor was repaired and running again. Its familiar sound filled the air as it moved across the land. People in town noticed nothing different at first. They still saw the same woman in plain clothes, driving the same old tractor. Some still laughed. Some still shook their heads. They believed nothing had changed. But things were changing. Mara met with Ben again. This time, they talked about steps. Legal steps. Safe steps. Ben explained what needed to be done to protect the land and confirm her rights. Everything had to be slow and careful. Paperwork was prepared. Meetings were planned. Each move was made quietly. Mara listened closely. She asked questions. She learned new words and ideas. It was not easy, but she stayed focused. She remembered her father's note about patience. Soon, official letters arrived. They carried stamps and formal language. Mara kept them in a locked box. She did not celebrate. She did not speak. She waited. One morning, a group of officials arrived near the edge of her farm. They wore clean clothes and carried tools and maps. They examined the land and took notes. People from town gathered nearby, curious and confused. Whispers spread. Why were strangers studying Mara's field? What was happening on her land? Mara stood quietly and answered questions only when asked. She showed the documents. The officials nodded and continued their work. By evening, the town was full of talk. The same people who once laughed now watched closely. Some felt uneasy. Some felt curious. A few felt regret. The truth came out in pieces. First, the land had value beyond crops. Then, Mara was the legal owner. Finally, the numbers became known. 5 million. The sound of laughter disappeared. People who once ignored her now greeted her politely. Some even smiled. Others avoided her eyes. The farmers with new machines fell silent when she passed. Mara did not change her walk. She did not raise her head higher than before. She moved with the same calm steps. One afternoon, a man who once laughed at her tractor came to her gate. He spoke carefully, choosing his words. He praised her hard work and asked about partnerships. Mara listened and thanked him, but she did not promise anything. Respect, she knew, should not be forced. It should be earned. The tractor became a symbol in town. People spoke about it with wonder. Children asked questions. Older farmers shook their heads in disbelief. An old machine had carried a secret that changed everything. Mara restored her house slowly. She fixed the roof. She repaired the fence. She did not build anything large or loud. She kept her life simple. She helped her neighbors when she could. She supported small projects. She listened more than she spoke. People began to understand something important. Wealth did not make Mara strong. Patience did. One evening, Mara stood in her field as the sun went down. The tractor rested nearby, quiet and steady. The land stretched out in front of her, full of promise. She felt no need to prove herself. The town had learned its lesson. Silence, when paired with strength, speaks louder than laughter. Time moved forward, just like the seasons on Mara's farm. The fields changed color, the air grew cooler, and the town slowly settled into a new way of thinking. The story of the old tractor and the hidden truth became something people spoke about with care. It was no longer a joke. It was a lesson. Mara stayed the same in many ways. She still woke up early. She still worked with her hands. She still drove the old tractor across the land. But inside, she felt stronger and clearer than ever before. She understood now why her father lived the way he did. He had chosen peace over noise and purpose over pride. With careful planning, Mara began to use the resources she had discovered. She did not rush. She worked with people who respected the land and the town. New projects began, but they were small and thoughtful. Roads were repaired. Water systems improved. Farmers were given better tools and fair support. Mara never stood on a stage or made big speeches. She preferred quiet meetings and honest talks. People listened more closely now. Not because of money, but because of trust. The town slowly changed. Young people found reasons to stay. Old buildings were repaired instead of torn down. The market grew busier. There was hope in small actions and steady effort. The old tractor became part of local stories. Visitors came to see it. Some took pictures. Some asked questions. Mara always smiled and told them it was just a machine that did its job. She kept the hidden compartment empty now. The secret had served its purpose. But the tractor itself stayed just as it was. Rust and all. One afternoon, a young girl from town walked beside Mara as she worked. The girl asked why she never bought a new tractor. Mara thought for a moment before answering. She said that some things carry more value than they show. Some things remind people who they are. The girl nodded, even if she did not fully understand. As years passed, the laughter that once followed Mara faded into memory. In its place grew respect and quiet pride. The town no longer judged by appearance alone. People learned to look deeper and listen longer. Mara often visited her father's resting place. She told him about the changes, about the farm, about the people. She thanked him for his wisdom and patience. On the land, crops continued to grow. The tractor continued to run. The seasons continued their cycle. Mara stood one evening at the edge of her field, watching the sun set. The sky was wide and calm. The tractor rested nearby, its engine warm from the day's work. She felt content. Not because of wealth. Not because of recognition. But because she stayed true to herself. And in doing so, she helped others see the strength hidden in simple things.